The vampire leader's rage reached its peak, his eyes blazing red and his twisted face revealing a savage thirst for blood. With a crooked smile and murderous gaze, he vowed to make his opponent beg for death. Under the sunglasses and fur hat, the middle-aged man could only tremble and gasp for breath. His breath hissed through the thick snow, but a determined light began to flicker amid the despair. Activating the enduring spirit skill, he charged forward as if reliving his youth. Carrying a panicked teammate on his back, he shouted with determination, pushing his body beyond its limits for 20 life-or-death minutes. A crazed Preda lunged from behind, claws raised ready to tear the two apart. A chilling scream and hungry eyes clearly showed its merciless intent to kill. At the most dangerous moment, a fierce sweeping strike descended. A black warrior with supernatural strength knocked the Preda away with a punch radiating deadly force and brilliant purple light. Even with reinforcements, the girl was horrified to realize the number of Preda was increasing. She gritted her teeth, frustrated by the overwhelming attack far beyond the prior warnings. Amid the chaotic battle, she immediately contacted others via radio, trying to confirm the situation in other areas. Worry was evident on her face as the battle's pace spiraled out of control. A teammate from afar responded and activated the fire element skill. Flames blazing between their hands confirmed the time to counterattack had come. His sharp eyes gleamed with resolve. It had been a long time since he entered a real battle, and now the fire in his heart and hands blazed together. The raging fire engulfed the battlefield as the old man surged forward amidst the flames like a war god. His laughter echoed amid the enemy's screams, turning the scene into a blazing hell. Yuri screamed in despair under the heavy pressure chasing from behind, urging the old man to speed up. Though being carried, she squeezed both sides of his head in panic, causing him to cry out in pain as danger loomed. The man gasped amid the thick snow, explaining that if they relied only on his legs to lure the monsters, they still needed more time. He reassured Yuri, hoping she could hold on a little longer so he could complete the distraction plan. The young man shouted in frustration as he ran with all his might. His sweat-drenched face and heavy breath reflected his resentment. Why was he always assigned the dangerous and exhausting tasks by Kang Jinhyuk? A deep red monster charged like a ghost through the blizzard, mouth full of sharp fangs. But immediately a sword flashed across, cleaving the fierce face in two with a decisive slash. The sword that struck belonged to a blonde warrior clad in white armor. She gripped the hilt tightly, steel gleaming amid the bloodstorm, ready to resist the fury of the monster tide rushing in. Surrounded by dense monsters, the female swordsman stood firm like a pillar of light. The red beasts roared in rage, concentrating their attacks, but she did not falter. Her golden blade traced a protective circle of light amid the darkness. Despite her bravery, the blonde girl was not spared injury. A monster suddenly closed in and bit hard on her shoulder, blood splattering. Her face contorted in pain, but her eyes never retreated. Wounded, she activated an extreme combat state. Her eyes shone fiercely, radiating divine power. Pent-up strength began to surge forth. Her face now showed determination to crush everything before her. The ultimate skill, Divine Explosion, was activated. A colossal pillar of light like holy fire pierced the sky, pouring down onto the snow-covered ground, erupting violently like divine wrath descending upon the battlefield. The Divine Explosion created a tremendous impact. The ground trembled, snow and monster corpses scattered in the blazing light. Everything shattered, leaving a powerful aftershock that terrified even the enemies. Amid the fierce battle, Teresa realized all her teammates were giving their all to stop the monsters from breaking through. The pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders as she understood. If they failed here, the consequences would be an irreparable outbreak. Teresa's sword plunged firmly into the snow-covered ground, marking her determination not to let the enemy advance even a single step. She knew that the line between life and death now depended on her own will and strength. Facing the relentless wave of monsters, Teresa gripped her sword tightly, affirming her unwavering faith. Though alone against the bloodstorm, she vowed not to let a single one pass this defensive line. In another direction, Jinhyuk sprinted across the frozen battlefield. In his hands, specialized weapons glowed, signaling an intense intervention about to unfold, where he would be the spearhead piercing through all defenses. From behind, Sylvia extended her blood-stained hand, controlling the deep red magic. The blood coiled around her fingers like a living creature, preparing for a destructive summoning ritual. With a fierce gaze, Sylvia concentrated all her power into the giant blood fist gathering in the sky. The terrifying pressure spread, causing the space around her to tremble amid dreadful howls. Kang Jinhyuk did not hesitate. The blood fist skill was activated, and he charged into the front line with the force of a shooting star. Repeated boom sounds echoed as each punch shattered the monsters surrounding his teammates. A monster was blasted backward, its body completely crushed by the horrific impact. Cracks imprinted on the cold snow proved Jin Hyuk's absolute destructive power. In the next moment, he soared into the air, spinning amid the monster encirclement. They lunged from all sides, but every move of Jin Hyuk radiated absolute dominance. A critical punch struck down, shattering a large monster into pieces. The wham sound echoed across the battlefield, signaling a hero who could sweep the sky without wings. A dazzling flash burst forth, clearing the darkness surrounding the crimson creatures. The clash of divine energy was fierce, causing the monsters to explode on the spot. As he activated the Blessing of the Stars skill, a brilliant golden light tore across the battlefield, blowing away the monsters before him. Jin Hyuk closed in amid the light storm, taking advantage of the surprise attack. From afar, a figure dressed in black with long bat wings stood calmly amid falling snow. His eyes gleamed with delight upon recognizing that his opponent also possessed divine power. Snow shattered beneath determined footsteps. Someone was approaching with heavy, resolute pressure, steps signaling a turning point in the battle. Michael's red eyes widened in shock as he was suddenly approached. That unexpected moment revealed his opponent did not behave like an ordinary human. Michael smirked sarcastically, turning to Jin Hyuk and speaking as if he had understood the true nature of the one before him, a madman in a life-or-death battle. Jin Hyuk did not reply, only flashing a sinister smile. In his hand, weapons shimmered with runes, clearly showing his amusement as he provoked his opponent with the futility of their attacks. Meanwhile, two pairs of legs advanced from afar through the thick snow. Michael's allies were entering the battle, preparing for a new counterattack. Two subordinates bowed and reported to Michael. The magic was ready. With a cold smile, he ordered to draw swords and begin a coordinated attack together. A quick glance was exchanged between the two loyal subordinates. Without a word, they understood the next tactic and were ready to act alongside their master. At Michael's command, the two vampire guards simultaneously drew their swords, ready to enter the battle. The cold atmosphere did not diminish the seriousness on their faces. Kang Jin-hyuk smiled mockingly, facing the situation of being surrounded by three attackers yet maintaining a teasing attitude, as if he was not the one corner. Michael responded with a cold smile, recognizing the excitement hidden behind Jin-hyuk's playful exterior. The tension between them escalated. A final offer was made by the vampires. If Jin-hyuk revealed where Alice was hiding, they would spare his life. But Jin-hyuk calmly replied that he did not know. The denial was immediately deemed a lie. A red blood fist lunged straight at Jin-hyuk, accompanied by a cold judgment. Lies. The confrontation officially began. Jin-hyuk reacted like lightning, sharply cutting the punch with a precise attack. The light from his sword flashed through the white snow, drawing a boundary between life and death. Jin-hyuk's eyes became sharp and cold. That gaze held no hesitation, only intense focus and determination to resist without retreat. One of the two vampire swordsmen charged with terrifying speed, launching a diagonal stab with both swords. Killing intent filled the entire space. The vampire roared angrily, demanding Jin-hyuk reveal Alice's location. His fury made him lose control, as if Alice's existence was the key to everything. But Jin-hyuk lightly dodged the attack while flashing a sly smile. He calmly asserted, "You've targeted the wrong person." Kang Jin-hyuk dashed down with purple light swirling around his weapons, responding to the enemy's relentless interrogation with disdain. He had already said he truly did not know where Alice was. Suddenly, Jin-hyuk's eyes widened in shock as a massive red energy block suddenly surged from behind, accompanied by a wild whistling wind. The violent collision exploded, sending Jin-hyuk flying off the ground. His body streaked through the air like a broken arrow amid a blazing red blizzard. Despite being forcefully thrown, Jin-hyuk quickly regained balance, sliding across the icy snow. His eyes ignited with an unextinguished flame of determination. Facing him, Michael summoned back the red energy block, his terrifying weapon, ready to launch the next attack. The corner of Michael's mouth curled into a mad smile, his red eyes sparkling with pleasure. He declared he would keep fighting until Jin-hyuk revealed the truth. The battle space trembled as giant red energy fists simultaneously charged from both sides, surrounding Jin-hyuk and overwhelming the situation. Blood splattered as Jin-hyuk was struck. Sharp cuts tore through his coat, leaving fresh blood dripping onto the white snow. Teresa, with a panicked yet determined look, rushed forward, clearly unable to stand by and watch Jin-hyuk suffer more harm. Opposite her, another ally began channeling purple magic from their palms, sparkling lights signaling their imminent intervention in the battle. The young girl shouted with determination as magic flared around her body. After urgent efforts in battle, the magic array was finally complete. A strategic turning point had been prepared. The purple magic spread into a radiant line on the ground, marking the magical boundary between the two sides. The energy wave vibrated the air, signaling that a large-scale magic formation had just been activated. The two vampires stood within the influence of the formation, suddenly horrified as the ground split apart and blinding light surged up from beneath the snow. They had never seen a formation with such power before. The formation was confirmed. World Prison, a 4-star barrier, officially activated. The sky trembled under the brilliant power of the formation, locking all creatures inside with no escape. Under the pressure of the formation, the two vampires finally had to stop and reconsider. They began to doubt the true target of their opponent upon seeing the carefully calculated plan revolving around Alice. Jin-hyuk grinned wickedly, raising the glowing ring, Braham's ring. He poured magic into the relic, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Clearly, he was preparing to summon something dangerous. A voice echoed through the poisonous mist as the figure of a woman began to appear. Without seeing her face clearly, the summoned entity's fury was enough to make the atmosphere suffocating. A pair of black high heels struck the ground with authority. Each step affirmed the arrival of a formidable figure, one even vampires must respect. While the two vampires in front remained vigilant, the one behind, clearly a high-ranking member, mocked them. He hoped for a peace agreement, but his expression was full of arrogance. In response to the unexpected development, the white-haired vampire merely smiled coldly. He grew interested, realizing the game had entered a new phase, and he could enjoy the chaos to come. Amid the dense blizzard, a powerful entity appeared in midair, with enormous black wings and swirling red aura. She was the star mentioned, the one all forces both awaited and feared simultaneously. As she appeared, the tower system announced that the power limit had been lifted by 20%. The restraint was broken, and her magic now surged, beginning to react with the surrounding world. The girl clenched her fists, her hands trembling from suppressed emotions. The pain of the past and pent-up rage were ready to be unleashed, carrying a resolve to destroy those who had betrayed her. With blazing red eyes and a scream that tore through the sky, she unleashed her full fury. The red energy flared fiercely as if even the heavens shuddered before the power of rebirth fueled by hatred. A wave of magic shot into the air in a violent explosion. Like a magical firework, she plunged toward the ground with a murderous will, causing the surrounding land to tremble under the pressure. Witnessing the scene, the two enemies could only be horrified. They could not comprehend how she still retained such tremendous power after being imprisoned in ruins for so long. That girl, now self-identified as Alice Fawn Ataraxia, revealed that her time tormented in endless darkness had not weakened her. On the contrary, it had only made her thirst for revenge stronger than ever. Raising her hand high, Alice declared judgment. Her words were like a condemning blade aimed at the traitors. "Now I will make all pay," her voice echoed like a death sentence in the cold air. As the snow continued to fall thickly over the frozen mountains, a giant creature was rushing like a whirlwind. Caracol's heavy footsteps echoed on the icy ground, carrying a heavy pressure just as an urgent call suddenly came from Kang Jin-hyuk. Jin-hyuk's familiar voice rang out in the video call, teasing Yoon-seok with his characteristic smile. Although angry at being mocked, Yoon-seok could not refuse the mission the man was about to assign. On the thick snow, Caracol strode alongside Yoon-seok, while Jin-hyuk gave clear orders. They had to find and destroy the magic crystal, the core of the magic trapping the entire team. There was little time, and everything was becoming critical. Caracol recognized the importance of the mission, and his eyes flashed, reflecting rare seriousness. A brief silence signaling agreement, he immediately moved. At that moment, a horde of blood-red monsters suddenly poured down from above. Caracol lunged forward, shielding Yoon-seok, preparing to face the approaching nightmare storm. The white predator skill was activated, making Caracol's weapon transparent and enhancing both its power and attack speed. His massive body tensed, ready to smash through any obstacle ahead. Caracol swung his weapon with tremendous force, a critical strike that blew the monsters away amid fierce roaring. The thick snow could not stop his frenzied power. In the midst of battle, Caracol kept a cool head. He carefully observed the monsters, affirming that these creatures could not have been sent to guard something as important as the magic crystal. Wasting no time, Caracol immediately looked ahead and said coldly with determination that he had a few other suspicious locations in mind, and no one was to be late. Though accompanying Caracol, Yoon-seok felt a surge of dissatisfaction inside. He could not understand why he, captain of the 2nd Assault Team of Guild Dangun, had to cooperate with such a monster. Caracol tilted his head to reassure his companion with a weighty promise. Despite the swirling snowstorm, his determined eyes affirmed, no matter what happened, he would protect him at all costs. Caracol's giant body advanced like a living fortress amid the blizzard, while his small companion ahead silently felt the strong presence behind him. The biting cold wind blew through, but the young warrior's gaze was now resolute. Within him seemed to rise a determination ready to fight to the end. In another direction, Caracal continued moving forward. In his mind, his only worry was not losing the sole means of communication with Jinhyuk, the man he trusted absolutely. Amid the snowy forest, a series of blazing red, deformed creatures began to spill out. The chaotic sounds and piercing screeches signaled an impending battle. Alice suddenly soared into the sky, stunning the monsters below. Her slender back and dark black wings tore through the snowy veil like a harbinger of disaster. From above, Alice silently observed the crowd of red monsters jostling below. With a slight flap of her wings, she summoned a swarm of blood bats gathering like a bright red whirlwind. The sphere of blood skill was officially activated. Alice's eyes flared red. Her expression was emotionless but radiated a terrifying killing intent as magic began to swirl around her. The space shook violently as a giant blood magic circle appeared behind Alice. Under the deep red light, she spread her arms to cast magic like a goddess of judgment amid the snowy sky. From the center of the magic circle, a greatsword-stained blood red plunged straight into the ground. The word judgment appeared as the final sentence for those who dared oppose Alice von Ataraxia. The Preda monsters screamed fiercely in the blood aura, enraged and chaotic as they sensed the divine power descending. They could only howl hopelessly amid the impending wrath about to strike. From the sky, the giant blood-red sword named Judgment pierced straight through the atmosphere, creating a blazing red energy column that punched through the ground, shaking the space like an apocalypse. The shockwave spread violently, blowing snow and earth into the air, sweeping up everything around. A destructive energy storm erupted, engulfing the battlefield in dazzling light. The terrible impact created a shockwave that swept clean in all directions, terrifying those nearby into resistance. No one could stand firm against such fierce pressure. Jinhyuk gritted his teeth, planting his sword into the ground to maintain balance, while other teammates staggered in the wind, screaming as they lost complete control before the overwhelming power beyond imagination. Two members were blown off the ground, completely helpless in midair. The power of this strike not only destroyed enemies, but also submerged allies in chaos. Teresa struggled to protect herself from the raging wind, while shocked to realize the source of the energy was where Jinhyuk was fighting. Worry was clearly visible on her face. Anxiousness shone in Teresa's eyes as she wondered what kind of monster Jinhyuk was battling that required such destructive power. She silently felt the terrifying gap between them. The snowstorm gradually subsided, leaving a desolate scene. Rocks were torn apart, the ground cracked, and Preda blood evaporated into a pale, pinkish mist. A voice rang out in astonishment. With a single strike, more than half of the Preda had vanished from this world. Jinhyuk's name once again surpassed all conventional battlefield standards. Amid the blood-stained white snow, a noble figure appeared. Michael, cold and sharp, spoke sarcastically. He assessed Alice with a cold gaze, as if mocking her past and reminding her of unhealed scars. Kang Jinhyuk remained unfazed before the powerful enemy. He gently called Alice's name, entrusting her with the responsibility to confront Michael, while he would handle the minions lurking around the battlefield. Alice responded with an arrogant and confident tone. She landed firmly, declaring she could eliminate them all without any support. Her blazing red eyes reflected the pride of a pure-blooded demon clan. However, Jinhyuk would not let her face danger alone. With a solemn yet sincere expression, he denied her words and softly said he just didn't want her to bear all the risks alone because they were friends. That simple statement made Alice's gaze falter. In her blazing red pupils was a flicker of surprise, a strange emotion, a warm feeling she had long rejected, now slowly creeping into her icy heart. As Jinhyuk turned to walk away, Alice suddenly softly called his name. Her voice was light as the snowy wind, but carried many unspoken words. He stopped, tilted his head slightly, waiting for something from her amid the raging storm. He did not answer immediately, only smiled silently. The snow still fell, but that smile was warmer than any flame. It was an affirmation of trust, of a bond no longer based on exploitation, but sincere affection. Finally, Jinhyuk gently refused to reveal his feelings at that moment. Wait until everything is over, then I will tell you. In that promise was tenderness, a silent protection he offered Alice amid the chaos. And Alice, the one who always considered herself strong and needing no one, could not hide a slight smile, a smile of compromise, tinged with gentleness. In that moment, the cold heart of the demon clan seemed to warm amidst the ice and snow. Without another word, she accepted the answer with a slight nod. For the first time in her life, Alice did not fight for orders, ideals, or hatred, but for someone she trusted, a friend. The system coldly announced, "Third death flag recorded 3-4. At the same time, the temporary invincibility effect, 1 second of invulnerability, was disabled. The warning of death was closer than ever. With resolute eyes, Jin-hyuk pointed directly at the opposing vampire group. He declared he would hold back the 3 followers of Michael to clear the way for Alice, ready to confront them despite knowing it was a dangerous move. On the opposing side, the pureblood vampires showed no hesitation. Under the cold snowlight, they silently nodded in agreement, treating Jin-hyuk's declaration as an invitation to an unrefusable battle. One of the 3 vampires stepped forward, greeting Alice with a sarcastic voice. He called her by her old title, former head of Ataraxia, provoking her past and her former position in the clan. Alice gritted her teeth to suppress her anger. The dark memories dragged onto the battlefield were like a knife tearing through her mind, but she knew this was the time to prove herself through action. Unable to bear it any longer, Alice shouted in fury, activated her power, and charged straight at the one who had betrayed her. She yelled, refusing to let him mention her name with that filthy mouth again. The powerful clash shook the entire mountain region. Under Alice's destructive strength, rocks were torn apart and dust billowed. The battle officially began with uncontrollable rage. Amid the shattered debris, a blazing red arm slowly rose. A cold voice echoed, "You should not have left that place." The old grudge was returning, accompanied by dangerously extreme power. Though trying to counterattack, Alice could not deny the truth. She had once been the strongest among them, but now the tower's limits restrained her, while the enemy was not. The opposing vampire sneered contemptuously, fake tears dripping mockingly from his eyes. He arrogantly mocked Alice, showing pity as he saw her, weak and frail, daring to resist him. His words poured fuel on the fire of hatred. Alice's eyes flared with fury, her fangs bared as she clenched her teeth, awakening a determination not to let the past repeat itself. She soared into the air, summoning a blazing blood tornado from both hands, shouting loudly in anger. Even weakened, she still believed she was superior to the traitor before her. The blood explosion skill was officially activated. A wide area attack unleashed like incarnate wrath, pushing back all creatures within its blast radius. Through the faint smoke, Michael emerged from the explosion, unfazed. His cold voice rang out, mocking Alice's ideal of protecting balance as a weakness that caused her decline. Michael continued to insult her, claiming that Alice's desire for peace and justice had restrained her growth, rendering her powerless before him. He smiled wickedly as he declared it was his turn to counterattack. With his body demonically glowing red and blazing aura, Michael activated his bestial form, symbolizing his current superiority. Alice screamed with hatred, her eyes blazing. Facing the new power of her former subordinate, she could not hide her anger and sense of betrayal. Meanwhile, Jin-hyuk calmly approached Michael's 2 remaining subordinates. The air around him hissed with frost, signaling an imminent decisive battle. One of the 2 facing Jin-hyuk drew a pair of sharp twin swords, coldly declaring that this time would be different from the last. They were ready to finish it. Jin-hyuk smiled calmly. With his usual confident demeanor, he responded with provocative words, implying that he had never felt threatened by these guys. The 2 black-clad vampires stood in the blizzard, coldly repeating the reason they had kept Jin-hyuk alive until now, only for information. But now, with Alice's appearance, that purpose was no longer necessary. Jin-hyuk slightly tilted his body, a lazy smile appearing on his face. In response to the death threat, he replied lightly but provocatively, "Is that so? Then let me show you my true power." Jin-hyuk's voice deepened, his eyes sparkling with danger. He revealed that the power they had seen was only the tip of the iceberg, a very small part of what he truly possessed. With surging energy, Jin-hyuk shouted like a declaration of war. What they had seen was only 20% of his true strength. He was ready to unleash his full hidden potential. The 2 vampire leaders looked momentarily confused. While one frowned skeptically, the other showed worry. They did not know if Jin-hyuk's confidence was a bluff or a real threat. At that moment, the system's cold announcement rang out. The final death flag had been activated. A deadly skill was about to be unleashed from Jin-hyuk. The skill Mana Absorption A was successfully copied. He had deliberately taken the hit, sacrificing flesh and blood to gain a vital skill when facing the vampire race. Jin-hyuk's sharp eyes pierced the night as he began experimenting. Could he merge the Mana Absorption skill with a divine power skill to create something beyond imagination? The fusion of Mana Absorption A and Blessing of Stars SS was complete. A brand new skill was created. Soul Absorption, the crystallization of magic and divinity. Soul Absorption held a difficult-to-achieve S rank. Not only did it absorb the opponent's mana, but it also allowed the user to accumulate the hidden vitality stat with each hit, a priceless advantage in prolonged battles. The vampires' first reaction was a mix of horror and doubt. The Mana Absorption skill was originally limited to their kind, yet this human was using a superior version imbued with divine power. This shock shook their long-held belief in their species' supremacy. Realizing the opponent's danger level, the long-haired vampire immediately acted. In a lightning-fast dash, he leapt from the snowy ground, signaling his comrades to stop standing still. The time for action had come. Without hesitation, the sword swing filled with icy aura closed in on Kang Jinhyuk. "Taste this," the vampire said coldly as his blazing red sword clashed against Jinhyuk's defense, producing a resounding clang like an official declaration of war. But at the very first clash, the vampire noticed something unusual. A portion of his mana had been absorbed. The soul absorption effect immediately activated, making him feel a terrifying erosion deep within his being. In contrast, Jinhyuk casually licked his lips, delighted by the new sensation. The cold notification confirmed. He had permanently gained vitality stats thanks to the soul absorption effect, a breakthrough beyond normal growth rules. Amid the thick red mist of demonic energy, Jinhyuk silently turned back, his gaze as cold as winter snow. Nothing limited him anymore. His growth potential had shattered all boundaries, the growth limit now completely non-existent. An ultimate skill is activated. Sword Steps of the King. The vampire twin swordsmen unleash their full power in an explosive sword dance, launching a coordinated attack with deadly speed and force. During the fierce battle, Jinhyuk continuously accumulates vitality through the skill Soul Absorption. Each precise strike increases his life force, making his battle smile even more terrifying. Conversely, each hit causes the two vampires to steadily lose their magical power. The effect of the Soul Absorption skill radiates continuously, weakening them bit by bit despite still holding the initiative. Facing an unfavorable situation, the white-haired vampire issues an urgent command. His teammate immediately cooperates, setting the stage for a carefully prepared assassin's strike, a calculated, coordinated move. The skill Blood Thrust is activated. Blood swirls fiercely around the sword, forming a powerful straight attack that pierces toward Jinhyuk like a deadly drill with destructive momentum. The lightning-fast thrust tears through the air, seemingly unavoidable. But Jinhyuk remains eerily calm, a slight smile curling on his lips as he utters a challenge. "Nice try." A thunderous explosion makes Jinhyuk glance instinctively. On his cold face, a sign of alertness flashes. He has sensed something unusual from afar. Seeing the red barrier shaking violently, Jinhyuk realizes Alice's incomplete power is insufficient to restrain Michael. Time is running out. He must end this battle immediately. Although still accumulating stats, Jinhyuk is forced to put aside his personal plan. The two enemies before him have taken hits but are still alive. He tightens his sword hilt and begins interrogating them about Michael's true purpose. Giving them no other choice, Jinhyuk activates the skill Grave of Swords. Light swirls around the blade, emanating a mysterious aura. His voice rings out like a verdict. Reveal or die. Shaken by the sudden surge of magical power, both Bershin and Ophelia appear confused. They realize their opponent is still hiding a terrifying source of strength they have never witnessed before. In a rage, Bershin roars, intending to counterattack with all his might. But he did not expect that his arrogance would lead him into a deadly trap. Blood splatters across the icy battlefield as Bershin suddenly takes a hit. Ophelia screams his name in horror, completely unable to react to the lightning-fast strike that just landed. Ignoring the dying Bershin behind him, Jinhyuk walks away coldly, leaving a sharp declaration. He only needs one of the two to extract information. With blazing red eyes piercing into the enemy's mind, Jinhyuk turns to look directly at Ophelia, speaking in an unmistakably firm tone. "Now, let's have a serious talk." Ophelia stands frozen, her eyes filled with fear. She has never felt such a strong killing intent that makes her blood seem to freeze midair. With no way out, Ophelia summons all her power, transforming into a blood-colored warrior. She charges forward with all the hatred and raging madness in her heart. She unleashes a full-force slash, but her opponent does not dodge. Instead, Jinhyuk reaches out and catches the blazing red sword like a trap set amid the blood magic storm. The tremendous collision creates a resounding explosion, the ground shattering under immense pressure. Ophelia's body is thrown violently like a puppet in a raging counterstorm. Suspended in the cold air, Ophelia hangs like a torn corpse, blood coagulating into fragments drifting through the snowy sky. The powerful aura she once proudly held has completely shattered. Thrown into the air, Ophelia grits her teeth, enduring as she realizes she no longer has enough magical power to counterattack. Despair surges as she fully understands the helpless situation weighing down on her. From above, Alice, in red armor with blazing magical wings, dives down like a punishment strike. Her figure shines brightly against the snowy sky, radiating fierce killing intent that makes everything below tremble. With a roar full of fury, Alice channels all her strength into a meteor-like dive. The red light streaks through the air, signaling a fatal blow about to strike the helpless opponent below. The collision thunders like rolling thunder, creating a massive explosion that shatters the snowy land around. The ground shakes violently as the pressure spreads across the battlefield, erasing all traces of the previous balance. From the terrifying explosion, a horde of red creatures, the Preda army, floods out like a raging flood. With ferocious speed, they charge forward simultaneously, threatening to crush everything in their path. As the monsters surge forward, a skill is activated. White Predator shines. A warrior swings a sweeping slash that clears enemies with a sharp ice blade, temporarily holding the line amid the chaos. Meanwhile, in another area of the battlefield, a group of enemies has found the core target, the central energy crystal protected by a magical seal. "We found it!" Cheers ring out amid the encirclement. Sensing the critical situation, a giant beast warrior shouts loudly amid the earth-shaking footsteps. "To win this battle, we must destroy that crystal." The command immediately changes the course of the fight. Without hesitation, the giant declares he will lead the attack, turning to his smaller comrade with clear trust. "Can you get close to the crystal?" Placed in an unavoidable position, the comrade swallows his pressure and looks up with eyes both confused and determined. "Are you serious?" A life-or-death decision is about to be made. Before the young man lies a massive crystal guarded by countless fierce red monsters. In panic, he falls into self-doubt, unable to believe his mission is to break through those monsters to destroy that huge object. While others fight to protect family or noble ideals, this young man admits his true reason is simply to gain his daughter's attention. Amid the icy battlefield, he reveals his smallness and honesty and his desire to be recognized. Anger erupts as the young man screams amid the blizzard and monsters. He does not seek glory, only ever wish to be seen as cool and outstanding. Now, pushed into a life-or-death battle, he questions fate for demanding too much from an ordinary person like him. At the height of emotion, a sudden attack from a monster strikes the giant green warrior's body. The impact shakes the ground, signaling an uncompromising counterattack about to unfold. The wise giant remains unshaken. Though his body is clung to by red monsters, he calmly reminds that life need not be complicated. In his deep eyes, he clearly states his philosophy. The path of life is simpler than we think. He continues amid the screams and attacks that there is no need for distant worries or lofty dreams. What is necessary is to focus on the reality before us, right here, right now, and move forward with all we have. Using his full weight as a weapon, the giant stomps hard on the ground, creating shockwaves that break the monster formation. The red demons are flung into the air, clearing the way for allies to advance. Amid the chaotic battlefield, the young man lets out a fierce shout, as if releasing all fear, pressure, and responsibility. Though still trembling, his eyes begin to shine with determination. The giant stomped powerfully and then leapt high into the sky. With the sparkling light of the crystal reflected in his eyes, he left a powerful statement. This is how a man lives, a life without retreat. The next scene was a lightning-fast charge like a blizzard piercing through the monster horde. The giant and the small figure coordinated, creating a fierce opening on the battlefield, breaking the beast's formation. As the battle reached its most intense moment, the young man suddenly charged into the red monster swarm with his sword in hand, his eyes radiating unshakable determination, as if he had finally chosen what he needed to do. Amid the howling snowstorm, he shouted emotionally, a long-buried vow bursting forth. He would not give up. For the first time, he had found a purpose for himself. A flashback appeared, the image of the sword in a ceremonial box, the congratulatory words when he was appointed captain of Guild Dangun's 2nd Assault Team, a great honor that once filled him with pride. In the luxurious office light, the leader laughed heartily, enthusiastically patting his shoulder, promising glory, wealth, and unimaginable privileges that a guild captain could have. At that time, he smiled, holding the sword like a dream taking shape, his eyes full of hope and a desire to prove himself, though unaware of how harsh the future would be. Back in the brutal battle reality, he silently told himself, what I can do right now is not to run away, but to act, even if just a small step amid the bloodstorm. The sword descended, light flashing amid the white snow. The strike carried all his strength, faith, and long-suppressed past, aimed straight at the core of the barrier. The magical crystal shattered into pieces as the blade pierced through. A wave of energy burst accompanied by a cold announcement. The mana supply of Blood Wayport has been destroyed. The black-robed mages panicked and turned around, their eyes fixed on him and the destroyed crystal. Their stunned screams rose as they realized their main magic was collapsing. Then, in the trembling ground center, the giant magical formation began to fade amid the snowstorm. The once impregnable barrier was now vanishing in the enemy's horror. The red-masked woman, once proud and indifferent, now froze in utter terror as she witnessed the main magical source erased in an instant. Joy erupted among the comrades as they realized the terrible barrier had completely disappeared. The final light of hope had finally opened the way. From his observation point, Jinhyuk coldly confirmed the result. The crazy plan had succeeded, and they had truly wiped out the blood magic ritual. The mastermind was submerged in icy water, choking out meaningless curses in despair. The humiliation had reached its peak. Jinhyuk, maintaining calm, continued torturing the suspect by regularly dunking him underwater, uttering sarcastic yet icy remarks. Finally unable to bear it, the enemy panicked and screamed that their destination was floor 29, where some great secret seemed to be held. Jin-hyuk frowned upon hearing Floor 29 mentioned, the area currently under Imperial Army control, making the suspicion even more serious. The captured man continued to reveal the name, Michael, disclosing that the ultimate goal was to obtain Bamung, a treasure of great strategic value in the Empire's hands. Ignoring further details, Jin-hyuk threw the enemy into the snow, his eyes lighting up as he recalled the name Bamung, clearly understanding the opponent's plan. The image of the legendary sword Bamung appeared in Jin-hyuk's mind, a mythical weapon capable of slaying dragons on floor 48, now at the center of Michael's conspiracy. Ophelia collapsed to her knees in the snow, coughing heavily, her body weakened after defeat and mental torture. Jin-hyuk's heavy footsteps approached her, signaling an unavoidable fate. Without hesitation, Jin-hyuk activated Seal of Submission, a forbidden skill that forces the soul to bow. A sharp, burning pain spread throughout Ophelia's body, making her unable to resist. With a cold voice, Jin-hyuk looked down at Ophelia and uttered a cruel yet honest question. Did she want to live or die in her current situation? Amid sobbing and streaming tears, Ophelia cried out pitifully. She screamed, longing to live, even at the cost of submission. With Ophelia's heartfelt consent, the seal of submission was completed. A gentle blue light spread from Jin-hyuk's finger, engraving the mark onto the vampire's flesh. Jin-hyuk turned his back and walked away, leaving Ophelia trembling in the white snow. His voice rang out calmly yet overwhelmingly. Pleasant cooperation, Ophelia. Elsewhere on the battlefield, a pair of high heels stomped hard on the ice, reflecting the accumulating anger and signaling the next event. Alice screamed in pain as the red-masked enemy closed in. Suppressive magic surrounded her, rendering all resistance hopeless. Lifted into the air by magical power, Alice's body convulsed in despair. The red-masked foe coldly declared her freedom was over. The enemy pulled out a glowing pendant, a symbol of absolute control. "It's time to return to where you belong, Alice," he said, as if her fate had been predetermined. As the situation became critical, Jin-hyuk activated the skill Grave of Swords, summoning a storm of sharp blades to slash through the giant monster threatening Alice. Amid swirling sword energy, his eyes blazed fiercely, pushing the finishing strike to its peak. The masked demon could not believe his eyes. The bestia that had nullified Alice's attacks was easily cut apart. His arrogant confidence began to waver facing Jin-hyuk's true power. Exhausted, Alice fell but was caught just in time by Jin-hyuk. Looking at her with gentle eyes, he whispered praise and told her to rest. The battle was now his to take over. Alice nodded softly in relief, her eyes closed in trust. She knew that with Jin-hyuk here, the battle was still under control, and she could set aside all pain for now. Rising with a shroud of dark energy, Jin-hyuk declared he would handle the rest. He activated Soul Essence with a time limit, preparing to unleash all remaining power to completely destroy the threat before him. The man wearing the red mask lunged forward like a wild beast, his giant red monster arms swinging powerfully with the momentum, showing his intent to crush Jin-hyuk from the very first strike. The charge was stopped when Jin-hyuk raised his sword to block the blow, causing a fierce clash between the two. Despite the opponent's strength, Jin-hyuk did not retreat but immediately activated the skill Grave of Swords. The slashes he unleashed were sharp like the scythe of death, as Jin-hyuk spun and struck continuously. Meanwhile, a system notification appeared, indicating that each slash consumed mana due to the soul absorption effect. Behind him, Alice was watching every movement of Jin-hyuk. She was surprised to realize that the power he was displaying far exceeded any previous times they had fought side by side. Alice silently wondered, in such a short time apart, how could Jin-hyuk have grown so strong? Admiration and surprise were clearly visible in her eyes. The enemy leapt high, hovering in midair with his red, menacing arm. He sneered contemptuously, calling Jin-hyuk a detestable worm, before preparing to counterattack with a full-force strike. He charged down with terrifying speed and power, his red arm swinging like a hook. The fury in his eyes showed he was losing patience with Jin-hyuk's resistance. But Jin-hyuk was not afraid. In his hands were two swords gleaming with deadly intent, his stance ready to receive any attack, his eyes sharp as blades drawn from their sheaths. The enemy roared in rage, "I will crush you," and unleashed a giant, blazing red fist imbued with brutal magic, striking down toward Jin-hyuk as if to shatter the ground. The explosion shook the entire battlefield as his fist hit the ground. The shockwave shattered the ice and snow, creating a massive crater, a sign that the battle was reaching its climax. As Jin-hyuk's strike cut through the monster, a swirling purple energy sword vortex wrapped tightly around the creature's body, tearing apart its seemingly impenetrable outer armor. The red eyes beneath the vampire's mask widened in shock. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. The beast he had always prided as invincible was wounded by a mere mortal. Jin-hyuk wasted no time and charged straight at the target. At the same moment, a white figure, Alice, appeared from behind, coordinating to block the enemy's counterattack. Amid the blinding snowstorm, Jin-hyuk squinted, frustrated that his previous strike hadn't fully penetrated. His gaze showed clear vigilance and determination. The vampire sneered slightly, inwardly pleased to confirm that the magical protection, magic barrier, was still active. He radiated a bright red glow from the armor covering his body. Jin-hyuk adjusted his stance, silently analyzing the power gap between himself and the enemy. He understood that the difference in magic levels was too great, and soul absorption was only a temporary solution. Without hesitation, Jin-hyuk stabbed his sharp, short sword into the belly of the red monster. A terrifying screech echoed through the icy air, proving the wound inflicted was truly effective. Another monster suddenly lunged down to attack from above, but a sharp sword swept through the air. A new warrior appeared just in time to block the assault. The counterattack came unexpectedly from another comrade. A black-haired young man jumped in, delivering a powerful punch that knocked the monster back in pain. On a nearby cliff, teammates observed the battle. A girl in a red cloak complained in frustration, feeling tired of always having to clean up the mess every time Jin-hyuk caused chaos. Jin-hyuk suddenly sensed something unusual in the air amid the silent snowfall, his sharp eyes reacting instinctively to the fight. In front of him stood Jang Yoon-seok of the Dangun Guild, a rare warrior standing amidst a battlefield littered with monster corpses, his body bloodied but still gripping a broken sword tightly. Jin-hyuk silently admitted that his opponent was more stubborn than he had thought. Yoon-seok's endurance could no longer be underestimated. Jang Yoon-seok turned his head and shouted loudly when he saw Caracal dying beside him. The massive body of the beast tribe leader collapsed among the ice blocks, his breathing weak. Immediately, Teresa slid down the mountainside without hesitation, her cloak billowing in the snowy wind as she rushed to the scene determined to save a life. Under the holy light, Teresa activated her highest-level healing skill, Divine Healing, as golden halos spread around Caracal's struggling body. Teresa's eyes closed in absolute concentration, beads of sweat running down her cheeks, the dense healing light enveloping both her and the victim. Jin-hyuk calmly announced that Caracal was out of danger, while Jang Yoon-seok knelt beside him, calling the leader's name in a choked voice mixed with hope. While everyone was still watching Caracal's condition, Teresa suddenly collapsed to her knees on the icy ground, a clear sign that her strength was exhausted. She tried to cover her chest, trembling and hugging herself to fight off the cold and exhaustion taking over, even though she hadn't had time to fully rest after the heavy resurrection spell. As Teresa collapsed in the snow, her body was completely drained after pouring all her life force into healing Caracal. Standing behind her, Kim Giddy sighed, silently realizing that this girl was just like all other strong people, always pushing themselves too far for others. In a dark scene, Kang Jin-hyuk gave strict orders to his teammates. With a calm but firm voice, he warned that no matter what happened ahead, everyone must absolutely not approach and must retreat to the rally point after finishing first aid. Amid the freezing air covered in white snow, Kim Giddy observed the battlefield. The surviving warriors were all exhausted, including Teresa, who was dozing off. He frowned slightly, realizing that the whole team was reaching their physical limits. With glowing red eyes, Jin-hyuk activated the greedy eye skill. Through the thick snow, his gaze pierced the space, searching for key information from the dangerous enemy who had just been repelled. The system quickly returned results. Luck and adaptability stats were increased, and the enemy's image appeared clearly. A vampire named Michael, with hidden stats and terrifying skills like mana absorption and magic shield. A special information panel appeared, clearly statting the conditions to copy skills from Michael. He must survive a fierce battle with this creature, a leader of the Black Wings faction who only appears on the highest floors of the Tower of Trials. Jin-hyuk gave a cold smile upon realizing that this time, he was closer to meeting the copying condition. He didn't need to win, just survive, and for Jin-hyuk, that was already a huge opportunity to advance further. Seeing that smile, Michael burst out laughing mockingly. With blazing eyes and a contemptuous voice, he ridiculed Jin-hyuk, a weak human who still dared to challenge him, as an unprecedentedly interesting opponent. Michael wasted no time unleashing his next attack. With the skill Blood Moon Claws, he summoned enormous crimson claws erupting in the white snow, ready to tear apart anyone who dared stand in his way. A brutal attack was launched at wind-splitting speed, deep red slashes tearing up the ground as Jin-hyuk quickly dodged. He did not counterattack yet, but every movement was being calculated carefully. Jin-hyuk immediately counterattacked as Michael unleashed his ultimate move, Moon-eclipsing Claws. He activated the Grave of Swords skill, creating a wave of sparkling purple slashes to directly confront the ferocious assault. Jin-hyuk's sword sliced through the air, creating a sharp crackling sound as it collided with demonic forces. Despite his careful defense, the pressure from Michael caused him to frown slightly due to the intense shock. Michael did not stop. Right after the claw attack, he charged straight at Jin-hyuk with his blazing red demonic arm, forcing Jin-hyuk to raise his sword to block the strike by a hair's breadth. He bared his teeth in a sinister grin after his attack was blocked and issued a cold threat, vowing to pluck out Jin-hyuk's teeth one by one as a way to crush the human's arrogance. However, Jin-hyuk remained unshaken. Silently, he drew two swords from their sheaths, his cold eyes reflecting the red flames clinging to the blades, a prelude to his counterattack. In response to Michael's mockery, Jin-hyuk smirked, raising a trio of red demonic arrows. They emitted sharp magical light, preparing for a surprising counterstrike. Red demonic arrow. The skill activated. The red arrows pierced through the air, shooting straight at Michael. A series of explosions erupted, enveloping the enemy in smoke and terrifying pressure. Seizing the opportunity, Jin-hyuk swiftly launched a ranged attack with his magic bow. The arrow flew from the string, skimming close to the ground, tracing a winding trajectory like a finishing blow. A streak of blood dripped from Michael's mouth, the first clear sign that he had been wounded. He muttered softly, finally acknowledging Jin-hyuk as a surprisingly talented opponent. In response to that humiliation, Michael roared furiously and activated the skill Flames of Hell. Hellfire engulfed his entire body, blazing bright red, signaling an impending fury about to be unleashed on the battle. Alice froze when she recognized the magical signature of the skill Michael was about to cast. Worry was evident on her face as she sensed the level of destruction about to occur. Without hesitation, Alice shouted a warning to Jin-hyuk and charged forward through the blizzard. She knew well that no matter how strong Jin-hyuk was, a direct hit could shatter him. But Jin-hyuk smiled coldly. He had no intention of dodging. Instead, he bluntly declared that only by taking the direct hit could he survive. Alice still couldn't understand the madness in that statement. She screamed, her eyes glowing red with tension and fear, demanding he quickly escape the danger zone. In the next moment, Alice acted on instinct. She summoned the Shield of Perseus, a divine artifact capable of blocking any direct attack, helping to prevent disaster. To Alice's astonishment, Jin-hyuk stood firm. Reaching forward, he created a barrier of separation, confident enough to simply order, "Just stand there and watch." Alice tried to rush in despite the red light barrier blocking her. She desperately called out Jin-hyuk's name as magical lightning enveloped her body and the Perseus shield. Michael's roar echoed with hatred. His entire body blazed with dark red demonic energy, symbolizing the rage and demonic power about to erupt. The ground began cracking beneath Michael's feet as he poured energy into his ultimate skill. From the fissures, hellfire started rising, dyeing the snowy sky red. A colossal pillar of fire, blazing like infernal flames, erupted skyward. Hellfire, the ultimate attack, was launched straight at Jin-hyuk, carrying unimaginable destructive power. Despite the danger, Alice raised the Perseus shield to protect Jin-hyuk amid the hellfire pouring down. The red flames seemed to engulf her entire body, but her gaze never left him. The fierce flames from the hellfire skill continued to scorch the ground, leaving a flowing river of glowing lava that covered the entire battlefield in deadly silence. As the fire cooled, the ground cracked open and burned blackened. Michael stood at the center, his body exuding exhaustion, but his eyes still held pride after the full-force strike. He breathed heavily, smiled faintly, and arrogantly declared he had never poured all his mana just to deal with a human. To him, this was a rare honor reserved for Jin-hyuk. Amid the sea of white snow and lingering smoke, Alice suddenly looked up, her eyes flashing. Something caused her to react unusually. Michael turned to look at her, thinking the moment for a one-on-one confrontation between him and Alice had arrived. His voice was cold but provocative, ready to continue the unfinished battle. In response, Alice gave a cold smile. No longer worried or afraid, only a confident demonic aura and something that made her more resolute than ever. Michael was momentarily stunned. A sudden feeling of unease rose within him as he witnessed that expression. He silently clenched his jaw, sensing that something wrong was happening. Michael's eyes widened in amazement. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. Something unexpected had just appeared right before him. In midair, Jin-hyuk suddenly appeared with determined eyes and a victorious smile. Despite just enduring a powerful attack, he not only survived but also counterattacked. The terrifying hellfire burst with a thunderous boom, engulfing everything in brutal red flames. The ground shattered, and the space trembled as if about to be torn apart. Amid the sea of fire, Kang Jin-hyuk activated the skill Invincible for 1 second. His body shone brightly, completely immune to all damage, ready to fight in the decisive moment. A system warning appeared. Using this rebellious skill would consume a massive amount of mana. But Jin-hyuk did not hesitate, ready to pay the price to turn the tide. From above, he dashed down like a lightning bolt. At the speed of light, Jin-hyuk shouted loudly, declaring, "1 second is more than enough for someone like me," carrying overwhelming power aimed at the target below. The first strike fell like a hammer from the sky, piercing through the enemy's defenses. Jin-hyuk drained his mana while turning him into a punching bag for his raging fury. The opponent struggled to counterattack, but the system quickly displayed a notification. Mana was depleted. He was left with only terror and fading skill light on his body. The finishing blow struck like a meteor falling from the sky. The opponent's magic shield was completely nullified, opening an irreversible shattered fate amid the exploding blizzard. Jin-hyuk unleashed a punch like a thunderbolt, piercing through the demon clan's defense with power gathered from all accumulated advantages. Under the snowstorm and the cold lightning, the strike sent the opponent flying backward, buried deep in an unexpected counterattack. Knocked back, the demon clan looked up in panic. In his mind, the fire that once burned enemies was now completely ineffective. The proud flame could no longer scorch that ordinary human body. Before the opponent's astonished eyes, Jin-hyuk tightened his grip on the weapon and prepared to launch the next strike. His eyes blazed purple, signifying a power beyond human limits, not from magic but from cold calculation. Just as the axe blade was descending, a hand with jet-black claws grabbed the weapon's handle. The demon, though shaken, reacted in time. He could not allow himself to fall yet. The demon clan gripped the trembling weapon handle tightly. He admitted to being surprised, but arrogantly exclaimed. He never expected a human to drain all his mana. His pride wounded, yet he still refused to surrender. Not letting Jin-hyuk deliver a fatal blow, the demon twisted his body and yanked the axe sharply toward himself. A simple move, but it showed his determination to counterattack and regain control in a critical moment. Roaring with anger, the demon charged like a whirlwind. He did not deny being cornered, but refused to be defeated by a human. He launched a deadly kick aimed straight at Jin-hyuk as a final challenge. The thunderous kick struck Jin-hyuk's shoulder. Though mentally prepared, he could not evade in time. The force was so strong it sent him flying, showing the demon still possessed terrifying fighting ability when desperate. Jin-hyuk's body was thrown far away amid howling winds. The attack pushed him out of combat range, but in his eyes there was no sign of despair, just a step back to prepare for another counterattack. From the powerful impact spot, white smoke rose as Jin-hyuk landed. Snow melted beneath his feet, the ground cracked open, and all eyes focused on where he stood, a human warrior still unyielding, still rising. With meteor-like speed, the demon raised his claws, aiming directly at Jin-hyuk kneeling in the snow. In that decisive moment, both carried killing intent, ready for a life-or-death strike. A swift swirling motion passed by, platinum hair flying, the attacker's gaze resolute. The demon hesitated not at all, attacking with full force as if wanting to crush the opponent in one blow. However, before the strike could land, a hand suddenly reached out and caught his arm. A sharp glash echoed in the air. That was Alice, appearing just in time to block the blow. Stopped midair, the demon glared at the one who intervened. His blood-red pupils shone with surprise and fury. He gritted his teeth and growled, unable to believe Alice dared to interfere. Alice shouted loudly, slapping him hard enough to tilt his head to one side. "You fool!" she yelled angrily. "Did you think I would just stand by and watch?" The slap spun him around, forcing him to step back several paces on the cold snow. Alice's silhouette was clear in his eyes, resolute and determined. A shard of ice fell from his clothes, a symbol that the balance had begun to crack. Though outwardly calm, the enemy's eyes now brimmed with killing intent. He bowed his head, half his face shrouded in shadow, uttering bitterly, "You shouldn't meddle in this. It pains me deeply." Alice turned to stand beside Jin-hyuk. She looked at him with concern. "Jin-hyuk, are you okay? Your mana is almost depleted." Though tired, Jin-hyuk smiled faintly, trying to reassure her. "Don't worry, I'm fine." But the truth was completely different. Inside Jin-hyuk, worry was rising. He knew he was struggling to maintain Alice's form, and if nothing changed within the next 10 minutes, the consequences would be irreversible. Before his eyes, the soul orb gradually faded, accompanied by a cold message. Time remaining, 00:11:31. If this time ran out, the chance of victory would completely vanish. In a secret place on the 39th floor of the Challenge Tower, members of a mysterious Black Cloak organization gathered around a round table. On the table, a crystal orb displayed the fierce battle between Michael and Kang Jin-hyuk, showing they were closely monitoring every development. One of the watchers noticed something unusual. Jin-hyuk seemed to have deliberately lured Michael into delivering a finishing blow, making the situation disadvantageous for Michael himself. Anxiety began to spread within the group. Tension rose as a member insisted they could not let Alice escape right before their eyes. However, intervening from the 39th floor down to the lower floors was extremely dangerous, forcing them to consider carefully. One member of the organization turned to the one called Exemption, requesting instructions for the next action. The current situation had exceeded their expectations. Exemption, the figure radiating power and fear with blazing red eyes, calmly declared that the battle was not over yet. He ordered continued observation, showing a terrifying caution and coldness. Back on the battlefield, Alice was suddenly pulled hard from behind. A rough, fierce black hand grabbed her wrist, signaling the enemy's reappearance, carrying hatred and violent determination. The white-haired vampire shouted angrily, unable to believe Alice chose to side with a lowly human. His words were full of contempt, igniting a fierce confrontation among their kind. The vampire's angry face trembled, his red eyes blazing and his shout filled with resentment. He felt deeply betrayed by Alice, whom he once respected despite her being dethroned. In response to the accusation, Alice retorted with equal fury. She fiercely denied it, declaring that he was the real traitor. Her voice was resolute, her gaze sharp as a blade. With a powerful strike and fiery eyes, Alice grabbed the neck of her former ally. She shouted loudly, affirming that they were the ones who had betrayed her first. Alice stomped firmly on the snowy ground, decisively rejecting the accusation. With a determined voice, she declared she was not siding with humans, marking a turning point in the intertribal confrontation. Alice's eyes were cold as she revealed the real reason. She was not protecting humans, but standing with her teammate. At the same time, Jin-hyuk appeared from above, throwing a punch as a confirmation of their unity. Without hesitation, Jin-hyuk swung his sword with great force at the enemy threatening Alice. The powerful strike sent the opponent flying backward, demonstrating complete dominance in the battle. The enemy was slammed hard onto the icy ground, the impact shattering ice and snow. She groaned in pain, losing control of the fight. Sensing the chance to counterattack, Jin-hyuk quickly signaled. He proposed using a combined skill, Blood Spear, with Alice, and though mana was depleted, Alice resolutely replied, "I can manage." Alice raised her hand to summon Blood Spear, a magical spear formed from twisted crimson blood, showcasing her unique power and determination to cooperate fully with Jin-hyuk. As the spear completed, Alice immediately spun and launched the attack. Her determined expression showed that the next strike would not just be a warning, but a punishment. The ground cracked open as Alice leapt high, generating a powerful thrust. She soared into the sky, preparing to deliver a decisive strike from above like a goddess of judgment. From the air, Alice shouted amidst the snowstorm, the blood spear in her hand aimed straight at the enemy below. Her silhouette passed through the icy light, signaling an imminent finishing blow. The blazing red spear struck down with terrifying force, exploding right before the opponent with a thunderous boom. This attack was not only destructive, but also a declaration of the power of the alliance between Alice and Jin-hyuk. Despite the blood spear piercing his arm, Michael gritted his teeth in pain, but his eyes remained full of hatred. He clung to his weapon as a last instinct for survival. From above, Alice closed in on Michael, her gaze cold as if piercing his soul. She declared firmly, recognizing the watchers observing from afar through his eyes, a direct challenge. Unable to contain her fury, Alice screamed inside the observation orb, vowing revenge against the entire organization that betrayed her. She declared she would crush them one by one, sparing none. But just as her anger peaked, Michael's deep voice interrupted. He called her name with contempt, striking at Alice's fractured pride. With a mocking half-smile, Michael declared that Alice's stab was too weak to harm him. He taunted her, fearless despite the bloodied spear still lodged in his body. Jin-hyuk suddenly interjected, his eyes sharp and confident. He raised his fiery red shield and decisively declared that if Alice was not strong enough, he would be the one to end this battle. Jin-hyuk's thunderous strike from his shield slammed directly into Michael. The overwhelming force shook his body, opening a real wound. The terror began to show on his face. Michael roared in pain, blood spurting from his mouth. For the first time, the once arrogant king felt powerless before the alliance of Jin-hyuk and Alice. The blood spear flew from Alice's hand, embedding itself into the snowy ground. The pressure from the recent strike was so strong she couldn't hold the weapon, proving the destructive power of her ally. A system notification appeared confirming Jin-hyuk survived the battle with Michael. He officially met the skill copying condition, a valuable reward from a fierce confrontation. After the finishing blow, the system announced that Jin-hyuk successfully copied the skill, moon-eclipsing claws, from the defeated opponent. In the cold white snow, the enemy fell while Jin-hyuk stood firm, an unconquerable warrior. A series of rapid notifications sounded. Jin-hyuk continuously leveled up after the battle. When soul essence expired, he staggered slightly but smiled with relief. A life-or-death fight had passed, and the reward was well-deserved. Still unaware that his physical limits were reached, Jin-hyuk arrogantly declared everything was too easy. But immediately his body wavered in the snowy wind, signaling inevitable exhaustion. Unable to resist any longer, Jin-hyuk collapsed onto the cold snow, unconscious. A worried voice called his name. That was Alice, his companion who fought beside him until the end. Alice gently supported Jin-hyuk and whispered emotionally. Thanks to him, she had tasted revenge for the first time, a thing she never thought possible before. Amidst the cold, that gratitude was like a faint warm light creeping in. She looked down at him, her heart full of emotion. Though she once doubted Jin-hyuk, suspecting he might exploit her, now that smile seemed to have vanished along with the victory they had just achieved together. Alice confessed her hesitation. She did not understand the true reason behind Jin-hyuk's help, and that had once prevented her from fully trusting him. But today, that doubt completely vanished. Jin-hyuk's actions and determination proved everything. He was not someone who would exploit her, but someone she could trust. Sitting beside Jin-hyuk, Alice softly uttered her final thanks. The light from her wings gently spread in the snowy wind as a testament to the revival of trust and sincere gratitude. Elsewhere, someone angrily slammed the floor, the chair crashing down loudly. They exclaimed that this was absurd, implying an unexpected defeat. An observer showed unease after Jin-hyuk and Alice's victory. An emergency meeting was convened among the Black Cloak leaders after the disastrous defeat. One of them could not believe that a guard with their title was defeated by a human. Not only had they lost a strong warrior, but they also lost the Blood Wayport, a strategic base to expand their army against the Empire. This shock dealt a heavy blow to their entire invasion plan. Amid the tense and chaotic atmosphere, a rhythmic sound echoed from the meeting table, the leader's fingers tapping on the cracked surface, signaling his presence and absolute power. In a cold, deep voice, the ringleader ordered calm. He acknowledged the losses but emphasized it was not total. The more important prize had been secured. He placed his hand on the magic orb, the light reflecting off its smooth surface revealing important information they had just obtained. The whereabouts of Alice, the high-ranking noblewoman who had disappeared from their sight. His blazing red eyes pierced the space before him as he mentioned the name Kang Jin-hyuk, the human who had disrupted their plans, and coldly declared he would always watch him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jin-hyuk's eyes slowly closed as if still dazed, reflecting the darkness gradually fading with the morning light creeping in. The young man finally woke up. His eyes opened slowly, carrying the haze and exhaustion after a brutal battle, but with the calmness of one who had crossed the boundary between life and death. Teresa's radiant face appeared right in Jin-hyuk's view, her smile full of relief and emotion, as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The group gathered around the hospital bed as Teresa shouted excitedly, "He's awake!" A wave of relief and reunion spread throughout the room amid warm light. After waking up to everyone's surprise, Jin-hyuk was surrounded by teammates, those who had worried enough to bring him back when he was unconscious on the battlefield. The warmth of the group filled the simple yet heartfelt scene. Teresa recounted how they found him among piles of vampire corpses, with no trace of surviving enemies. This information deepened the mystery and made her wonder about who had helped Jin-hyuk, a person none in the group had ever seen. Jin-hyuk remained silent, his gaze contemplative as he looked at the glowing red pendant. Though outwardly calm, his expression revealed he was harboring a secret about Alice, about another power he could not yet reveal. Teresa asked worriedly, but Jin-hyuk only smiled gently, denying any suspicion. He thanked her for taking care of him, carefully maintaining a distance between truth and safety for the group with a soft lie. Turning to the remaining members, Jin-hyuk sincerely thanked the entire team for their united fight. Though unspoken, it was clear he recognized the importance of the collective in their harsh journey. As the tense atmosphere eased, Jin-hyuk smiled brightly, dispelling all fatigue. He was hungry. The simple phrase, "Let's eat together," became the start of a brief peaceful moment after a series of fierce battles.